yeah, settlement in a rural area is not for everyone. And, they say some people stay and some people don't. And, that's all right. They say our children, some of them stay and some of them don't. And that's all right too. I think they have a healthy attitude about that. Rural areas are depopulating. I mean, people, and this is a trend it's global really, the move from rural to urban, and it's happening more. And the challenges of that is that with refugee resettlement in Canada and in any immigration really, I mean, a person does not have to stay where they first land. And so we talk about secondary migration. The U.S. calls it onward migration, but it's a trend globally where people come to one place and there's hope that they'll stay, but they don't.
And quickly, I understood that it was more difficult than I thought. So when I saw that the families didn't want to come, or maybe when they come, they leave from that place quickly. When I asked people why you want to move, there was not any subjective reasons. They just get afraid because it is small place and they got used to bigger cities and they have relatives and so on. So they want to integrate them. Everyone want to help, but the refugees, they didn't accept this. And then I said to my chief, I need to be more free in my job. I want to promote Valdemarsvik in big cities. So I convinced people to move from big cities back to rural places. That was a miracle. It's good for our local business, for Valdemarsvik, for hotel, for restaurant, for cafe. So we will create something not just for these people, but for the whole community. And then it will be a good example for other also municipalities or rural places to learn from our experience. We have had some challenges also and so on, but it belongs to, you have not to be afraid. I have to hear it from the people, those who are we working for now, what they think, why some of them they have moved, and I contacted them where I have also answer for those who has preferred to stay in Valdemarsvik as example. It was very interesting answer I got. For those who have moved from Valdemarsvik and for those who stayed, it is employment.
The way you usually get a job is your connections. And so the people who are bringing them into the community say, we have this person who's just new here. What is available? Maybe a year or so ago, somebody was talking about a group, I think they were from Syria, had settled in a small town in Manitoba here. And they were there for about a year, and then they moved to a bigger city because, they wanted, they knew there were more people from their ethnic group there. They knew people there, and they thought, well, we'll just, we've been here for a year, let's move on to the big city. And they weren't there very long, and they moved back because they realized that their English was slipping. They weren't speaking as much English. And they just didn't know as many people. And they didn't realize how many people they actually knew in that community.
This man in Bowmanville that I was just talking about, he works with my son. He's one of the guys. He's a man's man. He likes getting together with the guys. He's in construction. And his English is soared because nobody speaks Arabic or Kurdish on the job site. And he also has interacted with clients, that they're building houses for, and other trades. And they live in a neighborhood, a really nice neighborhood. So they take their kids to the park, they take their kids to the splash pad, they take their kids down to the lake.
If you have a family with small children, they're going to drag you into all sorts of things you had not planned to be involved in. Like they'll be involved in the local sports clubs or whatever in the school. And so you'll be going to school events and sports events and whatever else is going on in the community because the kids are with all the other kids. And so they will drag you into things that you had not planned to be involved in. And so that's another thing that will help if you settle someone in a rural area, having small kids or school-aged kids especially. If there is a rural area, to think about doing multiple sponsorships in an area. So bringing, not just one family, but 2 or 3 or something like that, who can be supportive of each other. And that's frankly what Altona did. I mean, they sponsored, I think, 4 or so Syrian family units. So they've just done this over and over again. There's a movie just came out called Peace by Chocolate. I heard about it the first time I was in New York at the UN, and the Prime Minister of Canada told that story at the UN. I brought, in fact, some Peace by Chocolate to the UK the last time I was there and gave some to the people at the Home Office.
One of the great Canadian stories of the past 8 years comes from right here in Antigonish. The story of a Syrian refugee. Yes, and a lot of you know exactly where I'm going with this, who came to Canada after his family's chocolate factory was bombed. Tariq Haddad arrived in 2016 and with his expertise founded a new chocolate company called Peace by Chocolate. They got support from ACOA and have now created many, many jobs right here in this town. This is not just the story of Tariq or of Antigonish. This is the story of Canada, a country that is welcoming, a country that invests in people, a country that not only sees the future, but seizes it. A country where everyone has a real and fair chance at success. A country that is rooted in community.
Because I think like our unsound economy is just going down. We never grow. And you can see after we start doing the settlement here, start like helping, start a lot of people from the city to move here. We see our economy is booming now.
The feel good, what is it, dopamine or, gratifying. I guess a lot of these 80 volunteers that we had originally are in my general age bracket. So they're people with more time on their hands. And my husband and I are at a stage in our lives where we're financially secure and we would like to give back to the community. Each of our sons has donated money to some of these causes for us, and they don't even know the people. My son, who's actually taken over my husband's construction business, has one of the former refugees, the newcomers, is working for him, has a job with him. And I think the one who's coming on Thursday might be able to get a job with him too. Yeah, it's just a feeling of satisfaction that we've made a difference in somebody's life.
The truth, the community, you take part, big part. When I need anything, just I tell the community. Mm-hmm. I say this family, they don't have towels. Next day, you find in my office towels. All these people, they are they need some clothing, or they need money for clothing. Right away, comes people donate. Anyway, and it's not people. They call friends and that start come to our area. And this was when we get to our area and I said we need to do something about it. We need to do newcomer settlement. And the family, they are the one they bring, they settle in our area.
We saw that they need a practice teaching a special school for farmer. For adults. When I raised this question for the employment agency and for the school, we understood directly that if we give them about half year this fast teaching, it's training to learn about the culture of this job, and how to get licensed driver for tractor and this machine to cut the trees and whatever on all this engine, yes. and to learn about the environment and all these things. And then in the end, you will get a kind of like employment card that you have got through this institute or school. And then during this period, they have 3 months of working in the field during the study. That was a part of the school for them, learning Swedish in practical way. And then we also had language trainer in this. And during that period, all those students who attended this school for farmer, all of them today, they have a full-time job. We understood that just becoming farmer, modern farmer, is not enough to get a job if you don't have licensed driver to get to the job. We had also project for a licensed driver, so it means all our projects are connecting to each other.
Yeah, there's a handbook, a driver's handbook, and a person like myself or another volunteer will go over the handbook with them. And when they actually have to do the theory test, they can have it in Arabic. The government has theory tests in just about every language.
In Canada, the federal government provides English or French classes for anyone who's a permanent resident, which includes resettled refugees. And when somebody comes here as a permanent resident, they have access to a series of services that are provided by, well, they're paid for by the government, but there are organizations across Canada that provide those services. And the services range from, helping people fill out their CVs to helping them, navigate in their new communities to things like this. And that's anyone who comes as an economic migrant or family connection migrant, they have access to those too. But Canada spends about $1 billion a year on those sort of services.
In Sweden, when you have a good creative idea, which can make changes for human being, for the people, so you can apply for project funding to develop your idea. So if they believe in your idea, so you will get money for that, and you will run your project during 1 year or 2 years, and then you will do it by yourself then.
They have special courses for people who are pre-literate. They cannot write or read in their first language. And so they have a whole range of classes they provide, up to, special courses for technical, like if you're an engineer and you need to learn English terms that are related to engineering, you can take a course like that. They're rare, but
Wow.
but those are options.
About a program we have called Habitat for Humanity, and it's a non-profit organization. I think it's certainly Canada and the US. They're given land and volunteers work on the house, and the houses are given, certain people are selected if they qualify, and these people have to put their own sweat equity into the house. So this person who spoke at the workshop a few weeks ago, he had worked for so many hours, so many 100 hours, like 100 hours or more, on his own house. And at the end of when the house was finished, he was given he had to get a mortgage, but he was given really good terms, and it was made affordable for him. And it's a fantastic program.
Oh, well, in Canada, we have a really good program called the Refugee Sponsorship Training Program. So since, I think, 1995, they've had this program that provides training tools. It does webinars, and every year, the government funds a training program for national leaders in sponsorship. But yeah, the government invests in training. for these groups, and that's really important. And the key piece is the RSTP, Refugee Sponsorship Training Program. There were 4 things that people who first were involved in the Sponsorship and Mennonite Central Committee that highlighted. And one was they were seeing images on their televisions about people fleeing in boats, and that moved them to be involved. A second one was religious, and their faith called them to respond to welcome the stranger. A third thing was just trying to make a positive contribution to the world after such a terrible war. And I think we saw that, after the Vietnam War. We're seeing it, in response to the Syrian war, the Afghan war, the Ukrainian war. People want to say, we see something terrible in the world and we want to do something positive. But a fourth thing is that they have their own experience of having to flee, and they say, I know what that's like, and I know what it's like to welcome people.
One of the workshops that I attended said that the minute their they set foot on Canadian soil, their refugee journey has ended, their permanent residence, and you shouldn't call them refugees anymore. You can refer to them as former refugees if you really feel the need to, but they are newcomers. So, but back in the day, before I realized that, I took one of them to town and went into various stores, and I introduced them as Syrian refugees, and everybody was just so almost overwhelmed to think that there's somebody from Syria in our little town of Port Perry. And yeah, generally people were very, very welcoming. I was in a coffee shop once, and I was by myself reading the paper, and I overheard a couple at another table talking about how our medical system and how long they had to wait at the hospital and how mad they were about having to wait that long. And then they said, but if I were a Syrian refugee, I'd be seen right away. And I almost said something to them, because I've waited hours in the waiting room with some of these Syrian newcomers, and they don't get preferential treatment at all. They're treated the same as everybody else.
I hear sometimes that people, they say, okay, from beginning, my neighbor didn't want to speak with me, and I believe maybe they were not happy that I am there. My answer, what I said, every Swedish people, native people, when they move to a new place, it gets for them 5 to 6 years to get to know someone. That is Scandinavia. You are welcome to Sweden. It is this way people are living. It is culture. So even Swedish people who are born in Sweden, but if they have to move to another city because they got a job or whatever, the new community will not welcome them with open arms, say, okay, you are our friend from the first day. No, it takes time to be integrated.
There's racism, there's negative attitudes towards immigrants. But I think one of the things that this program has done over the last 40 years is made people a lot more aware or open to diversity. About 22 or 23% of the people who live in Canada now were not born here. And if you add second generation, is a large proportion of the population. So we're I think a lot more used to it.
I think the example for yesterday I was in celebration for one girl. She come from Syria, from Raqqa. She never been in a school, and she's now she don't read or write Arabic. Now she read and write Arabic. She read and write English, and she has a great job now and really successful. And she has surrounded by friends of this Canadian people. She was celebrated yesterday because she ceremony becomes citizenship, Canadian citizenship. And when I say that, almost like I see her, I remember when I picked her up from the airport and was like, almost like, you know, like this woman, she don't know anything. And like, yeah, like almost like she's down. Whereas now she's so proud and bright and yeah.
The general polling in Canada for the last at least 10 years has, the general attitude is that immigration is good economically for Canada. People recognize that, and they see that especially in rural areas.